Jamie McLennan brought to you, as always, by Pro-Am Sports, your locally owned sports memorabilia and apparel specialists. You can find them just north of the Yellowhead on St. Albert Trail at 128th Ave, or visit them online at proamsports.ca. Like you, they are sports nerds and AM nasties too. Noodles, nice to see you again, man. Thanks for joining us, and thank you for your time this morning. We'll get right into it, and I just wanted your thoughts because as we have you guys just once a week, things can change in a week. And if you just want to chime in and get on the record, your thoughts on McDavid hitting that 100-assist mark the other night.
Very impressive. I mean, I was watching the game, and I was calling a game that night in New York, and then I rushed back to my hotel room and was watching it and got an opportunity to, I missed the first period, and I was like, okay, scores early on, and you go back and watch that. And then the Oilers keep scoring, but he's not involved. And I keep thinking, okay, like at some point, maybe if Knobloch's going to sit him down or maybe, pull his ice time back a little bit just to avoid injury or further injury. But I'm like, he's got to get that assist. And when they made the goaltender change, to me, it was a foregone conclusion. The minute he got the assist, it was almost like a giant, you never see emotion out of him. And it was like a giant weight off his back. He had this big smile on the bench, and I was like, okay, he's done. You don't need to play him anymore the rest of that night. But it was a great feeling. I think it's nice to witness history. 100 assists, only the fourth guy to do it. You could see how humbled he was, even in his post-game media, even his walk-off with Gene Principe. You could tell how excited he was. So it was really cool to watch live.
Well, the humbleness, and you mentioned, I think Hyman had to kind of goad him to go down the bench and get the high five. He didn't even want to do that at the point the score was so lopsided. And then he even gave a wave on the bench. The camera had him, and he put his hand up. So for Connor McDavid, I mean, that's a lot of emotion and showing, and as he should. You mentioned, I mean, that's a mark that not a lot of people have reached and celebrate accordingly. But for the Oilers tonight, Noodles down Arizona way. It's the final howl for the Canucks. Our co-host this morning, Jay Milne, can do a pretty good. I mean, he's good. He's working on it. But,
losing it.
The last howl tonight down in Arizona. Not so much focusing on the game this morning. We are here. But do you have any other memories that you'd like to share from your time? Not necessarily maybe Mullet Arena, but anywhere in that great state of hockey, Phoenix, wherever. Your thoughts, your time down there, whether be it as an analyst or otherwise, a fan?
Well, I mean, honestly, I'm bullish on this too. I think hockey's going to go right back to Arizona once they sort out the Salt Lake City situation. Now, I played in Salt Lake City in the IHL, and I've got a long history there with that city too. I think it's going to work. I've been doing some research on it. I have a buddy who married a girl from there, so he's talked about the population growing. So I'll go back to my Arizona memories. When I was with the St. Louis Blues in the late 90s, we were a pretty good team. And we had an unbelievable battle with the Phoenix Coyotes. Now, keep in mind, when they played out of Scottsdale, that rink was sold out. I think it was just under 16,000 people, white out, very passionate fans. Let's be honest, they built the rink in the wrong spot. Ownership has been a mess. So if you get two things, a stable arena, first of all, an arena that you could play out of other than a 4,780 person college place. If you have an NHL arena built in the right area, so if you build it where the dense population is, they will be fine. And then you need stable ownership that pays their bills and doesn't need the league's help and has deep pockets and is deep rooted in the community. So my memories was us. It ties into a former Edmonton Oiler. So I backed up Grant Fear, and we went and we were going deep in that round. I think it was first round, but we played Phoenix and Keith Tkachuk and Jeremy Roenick. Like, that was a good team. Yeah. Nikolai Habibulin.
Yeah.
And they took us to 7. And I remember Grant Fear standing up, and Fearsy never, ever said a word. He was a very quiet guy. And all he said to the guys is, guys, all I need is one tonight. And we won 1-0 that night. And it was kind of like that Messier statement is like, we're going to win. Like, it was literally, Grant said that, guys, we need one tonight and it will be fine. And Fearsy got a shutout. And I think Pierre Turgeon scored. I can't remember. They all kind of, the games they blend together. But we won 1-0 that night when we needed to win. And it was Fierzy called a shot. And I remember stretching on the trainer's table before the game, and I always had a little bag of popcorn there. And Fierzy walked in, and he just grabbed a little thing of popcorn, and he was just sitting there, and he's like, "What's up, chum?" I'm like, "You tell me." Like, this is, I'm watching a guy and who's been through it all, won cups, done everything, and he just had nerves of steel, and he just went out and threw a shutout that night. It was amazing.
Just one. Just needs one. Stands up and speaks one, and he gets the one. And great Pierre Turgeon drop as well.
Pierre Turgeon drop. That gave me chills when you said that. That is just like, I need one, boys, and goes out and delivers. It totally reminded me of the Moose story with the Rangers. Now, Noodles, we're heading into the playoffs. Clearly, it's go time. Teams are ready to go. Everything's set. It might be some jostling in the Western Conference, but everybody's ready to go. You just said it. You told that story about Grant Fuhr. Goaltending, everybody knows. It is what makes or breaks you in the NHL playoffs. And it's not always who you think. A la Aiden Hill with the Vegas Knights. Who do you see as maybe some outlying goaltenders, one or two that you could see really elevating their game, getting on a hot streak, and taking their team, further than maybe we had expected?
Well, I'd like to see Stuart Skinner do that, and he's getting an opportunity.
I wasn't going to say anything, but
well, I'm gonna say it because I've really been impressed with Stuart Skinner, with how poor the season started. You look back, and you guys have lived it, but you take a look at, Jack Campbell goes on waivers. Stuart Skinner wasn't playing well. The team was a mess in 30th place. They're losing to San Jose. Jay Woodcroft gets fired. They hire Chris Knobloch, which seemingly came out of nowhere. Didn't have that NHL head coach pedigree. I mean, Paul Coffey comes out of the stands essentially from the press box. Like, I look at it, it's been a unique year. The one thing I've been impressed with is the stability of Stuart Skinner, of not getting too high, not getting too low, being very consistent in his play. So now, last year's playoffs did not work out very well for him, especially against Vegas. Now, they might play Vegas again here. It looks like that. I don't know. I mean, we'll see what happens. But, for me, he needs to be as good as he was this season and just stable. He needs to make the saves that he should, and maybe a couple that he shouldn't. And he's been able to do that. So my focus is on Stuart Skinner. I look at Jake Ottinger, Dallas doesn't get enough love. They're a scary, scary team that just kind of flies under the radar. We all know what Connor Hellebuck can bring to the table. The scary one for me, too, is Georgiev in Colorado. I don't know if they 100% trust their goaltending, but if you looked at his wins, loss, all of that, statistically, he's been fine. But you're talking about maybe under the radar. That's a guy, Georgiev. I think Colorado's a rock star team. I really do. I think they're really good. I don't know how they'll hold up against Winnipeg. But Georgiev would be a guy that concerns me because he's unproven. They won with Kemper. They didn't win with Georgiev. Yeah. And he hasn't been per se a starter in the playoffs. But I'm looking right at Edmonton, and I'm saying Stuart Skinner has to be a difference maker in a positive way for the Oilers to go on a deep run. Well,
it's a bang on point there, Noodles, too. And you mentioned Campbell. I mean, the whole idea, too, was a bit of a tandemness. I don't know if you want to call it a 50-50, but certainly there was an idea of playing two. I mean, and Skinner's taken it, and they are where they are now, largely in part because of him, too. It's fascinating, though, too, Jets getting that home ice now against Colorado, and you mentioned the goaltending with those two teams. But I just wanted to transition from the West here out to the East. Fascinating theater last night in terms of locking down that final wildcard spot in the East and the reward of getting to play the New York Rangers in the opening round, Noodles. Do you want to walk us through last night? Where were you? When did you see it all happen? And how did you digest it all as it was going on?
Okay, so I just landed. I'm back home, but I called the Boston-Ottawa game last night. And the night before, it was Ottawa-New York Rangers. And last week, it was Florida, Ottawa, Tampa, Ottawa. So I got to see all of these teams. And obviously, I know the Leafs very well. So I've got to see all of these teams live in the last week and a half to 10 days. These top tier teams out east, including Carolina. So I think the New York Rangers are as advertised because the goalie's woken up. Shesterkin's been unreal his second half. Adam Fox is a Norris candidate. Up front, there's no weaknesses as far as their depth. So I was sitting, I'm sitting watching Boston kind of throw up a dud last night, and then they poured it on in the third period, and I think they had the shots were 24-2 or 24-3, and Anton Forsberg stole that game for Ottawa. So all of a sudden I'm watching before my eyes, the Boston Bruins lose. I had the Leaf game on the computer, and I'm watching the Leafs lose. So Florida wins and takes that spot. So all of a sudden now it's Boston, Toronto, and the inter-Florida battle, which will be – and I don't sleep on Tampa because I watched them last week, and Vasilevsky's woken up, and Hedman's having his second best career year. He's going to be in my Norris voting in the top 5. And oh yeah, they've got this Kucherov guy who's probably going to win the Hart.
A wild card team, eh?
And they're a wild card team. So I mean, it is going to be crazy out east, where there's going to be probably three teams that go home that are cup contenders, and that's scary.
Is that Florida Tampa one out east specifically keeping an eye on? Obviously, here in Edmonton, we're still looking for the opponent, Vegas or LA, whichever. But in terms of the matchups already kind of set, I mean, which one are you kind of salivating more over than the rest? I
mean, the easy one would be Toronto-Boston because there's so much history there. Yeah. But I think it's going to be Florida-Tampa. Like, that's going to be a bloodbath.
Yeah.
Both are legitimate teams. I know Tampa was a wild card team, but John Cooper, should be up for Coach of the Year. You look at Vasilevsky was out for the first 3 months. They've lost Sergachev for the season, but the spine of the team is still there with Hedman, with Kucherov, with Point, and Stamkos having 39 goals. I mean, Cirelli's had a career season. Brandon Hagel's had a career season, but all of a sudden they trade for Duclair and Dumba at that deadline. Those guys have fit in really nice. So Tampa's not going to be an easy out, but I do think Florida's a hell of a team. There's no weaknesses there either.
Well, Noodles, speaking of an easy out, this will be one that is totally not hockey related, but I think for you more than maybe some of our other guests that come on, people want to know you a bit more. They want to get to know who the real Noodles is, and this came in on our Paris Jewelers inbox by a fellow named Bad Andy. Totally random question, but I thought of somebody to ask, it would be you.
Okay.
What's your favorite band of all time?
I mean,
this is going to tell a lot about your story. This is going to tell a lot about what the people say about you.
Well, okay, so I think the easy one would be Nickelback because people know that I'm very close with Chad. Chad is one of my best friends. We have a weird kind of backstory too. My ex-girlfriend, her uncle married Chad's mom, and that was long before kind of Chad and I became very good friends.
This is like the Eastern wildcard situation last night, Matt. I'm like, hey,
it's crazy. But I mean, you know what? I always joke because I'm so close with the band. Like, their manager Bradley's a dear friend, and Chad. So I would say it's Nickelback, but God, I love Metallica. I love Bon Jovi. I'm a classic rock guy. I like anything where you can actually pick a guitar up and play it and sing. It's not synthesized on a computer. There's not a guy pressing a button with the headphones on and stuff like that. I don't mind house music, but I like music that's generated with a guitar, drums, maybe, an amp, all of that type of stuff, and people singing into a microphone without auto-tune.
You like to rock and roll all night, hey? Or
listen, Kiss would be one of them, but here's the other thing too. I don't know if you guys have read my book, and I know I got to go, but Gene Simmons pissed me off when I met him. It's called the egg salad handshake. And if I promise you, I know I got to go, but I know I promise you I will tell you that story if you remind me, is when I met Gene Simmons and he wiped his mouth after eating a potato salad or sandwich and then shook my hand. And I was like, all right, I'm done with Kiss.
Well, just another reason to go get the book, right?
I think so, yes.
I think that's a great reason right there alone.
Noodles, appreciate your time, man. We'll talk next Wednesday.
Okay, guys. Thanks for having me. I do love Kiss, but Gene Simmons pissed me off. That's all.
There you have it. Jamie McLennan, TSN hockey analyst, brought to you by Pro-Am Sports. Your locally owned sports memorabilia and apparel specialists. You can find them just north of the Yellowhead Trail, St. Albert Trail, 128th Avenue, or visit them online, proamsports.ca. Like you, they're sports nerds and AM nasties, too.